All right, what's going on, guys? Trev back again, here to bring you another video. This one's going to be doing our weekly review for this week's episode of Fear the Walking Dead Season 7. This is now for episode 4. It is called Breathe. Alright, and sorry I did not get this review posted for you guys on Sunday night like, I usually do. We had Halloween, so we had, all that stuff going on. But also have some personal issues. Mom's in the hospital again, so she's not doing too well. So, just didn't feel the gumption to go ahead and do the review like I usually do, but we'll do it now. And it's not because of anything to do with this episode, because this one is a really awesome episode for Fear the Walking Dead. Now, the first 3 episodes, I liked kind of the first 2. The second one started to kind of get a little bit with respect to the atmosphere and the environment. But then by the time the 3rd episode came up, I was kind of like, oh, okay, this is not very good. Now this one, at least for me, some people did like it, so I don't mean to beat up on it. My mood hasn't been the best, as you might imagine. This episode was actually awesome. So this episode, Breathe, we see the return, or we see the brother of the bounty hunter that we got to meet last season, and he was a fantastic character. We saw him in the season 6 premiere episode for Fear the Walking Dead, and it was kind of like sort of an epic confrontation type episode between him and Morgan. It was an incredible premiere episode, and so now this season it sounds like they have decided that they're going to go ahead and have a brother for him, and his name I think is Josiah, and I think he is a really great character. I'm actually really glad that they went this route with the bounty hunter, and having a brother who's sort of like, spoiler warning, he's a lot like him. At least it seems like at first he's exactly like him, and then as we sort of see the episode play through, we kind of find out near the end that he's actually not. He's not quite exactly like him. He's not quite as maybe bloodthirsty. When spoilers, like I said, Rufus gets accidentally bitten in this one. He changes almost instantaneously and kind of has maybe like a what have I done type of moment. So I really love what they did with Josiah in this one, and the possibility of him maybe being an ally, maybe being like a possibly even a series regular at some point, I think is really great. That said, we don't know how many more years Fear the Walking Dead is going to get, but if it does get a season 8, it would be really cool to see him, kind of back and sort of maybe at some point even join the group, or kind of come in at a good spot between Morgan and Strand and some of the different angst that's been built up between them, which seems to be sort of getting to a point where we may even see a Strand versus Morgan situation. And they did sort of give us a little bit of a confrontation in this one, but it wasn't too bad. You didn't see them start to go to blows or anything like that. But definitely Strand's behavior has been quite different, as what we call probably Dictator Strand. But I wasn't even sure in this one that Strand, and I want to see your comments about this below, so definitely leave a comment for me from you guys. I want to know, do you think that Wendell is actually at the tower? Because that's something to me that I sort of had thought, it's kind of weird. Like, do we know for certain that Strand was even telling the truth, or was he possibly making that up? Is it possible that Wendell is actually not there and Wendell is in fact dead? It would be difficult for him to kind of survive. We saw the wheelchair, we saw the blood and everything else. It kind of seems like to me, I'm not exactly certain that Strand was telling the truth. Maybe he was, and that Wendell is actually there, but I would not be at all surprised if, as a matter of fact, Wendell is dead, and if Strand was being disingenuous, was lying there, that could be a pretty big one in order to maybe to try to get Sarah to join him, that type of thing. It was, anyway, it got me thinking for a bit. Maybe Strand was just telling the truth, but I don't think that Strand is, somebody you can trust given these types of circumstances. It feels like Strand will always kind of use every situation to his advantage, right? Like, he'll lie, he'll do whatever in order to use the situation to better him. So if he could maybe add Sarah to his ranks and minus her from Morgan's, maybe he would go ahead and do that. At this point, I think kind of all bets are off with Strand when he pushes Will off of the roof. In the premiere episode for the season. I feel like after that, for him to just lie about something like that would not be out of character. I'd almost suspect that maybe he is lying about it, but we'll see later on if Wendell is actually still alive. I do think, though, that if he was, we probably would have maybe seen him in the premiere episode, and I don't recall ever seeing him at the tower, even in the background or something, which you kind of think that we probably would have, given the way the first episode, kind of played through when you had Will kind of going on a tour, going around, this kind of thing. Don't you think that if Wendell was actually there, we would have seen him? But maybe that's not the case, or maybe I just don't remember seeing him and he was there or something. Leave your comments below about that one. So we see the nuke, we see the warhead, we get kind of a Sarah-driven episode, which... At first, when I saw the previews for this one, I thought, I'm not really a big fan of Sarah. She's kind of like one of the add-ons with Wendell later on. They've sort of used her a little bit for comedy in the show, her and Wendell, the both of them. I kind of felt like they could be killed off at any point in time. But surprisingly, Sarah at least isn't. Wendell, I guess at this point, we really don't know. It's possible either one could be true. But I didn't think that either of them were really going to survive that long in Fear. And I've been surprised by her. But this episode, actually with her in it, I thought was really great. They sort of gave you her backstory and explained to where how her and Wendell, met, why she refers to him as her brother. And I thought it was a really good explanation, kind of her difficulty with breathing sometimes, which I thought was interesting given our world situation. I think there was even a mention of a mask, that kind of thing as well, which is kind of cool. But it was good to get to hear the backstory on what happened with her, what happened with Wendell, how they were kind of like, he's not her biological brother, in that, her mother had died during when she was born, and so she was put next to Wendell and immediately found even a companion there at a time when she was that young and everything. So it was really good for her in this episode. I'd say that after this episode is done, I like Sarah a lot more than I did before. Whereas before I just thought of her as kind of like a throwaway type character, something like that. Sometimes Walking Dead original series is the same. We'll have new characters introduced. They'll have a little bit of time, and then you'll see them either killed off the same season, like a Milton, or maybe they last for a couple seasons, you see them killed off later. Fear the Walking Dead's roster is actually kind of huge at this time, but we don't get to see everybody in one episode. They're really kind of splitting them up. Sometimes it works, sometimes I don't. It depends on if the character is if the episodes are led by a character that you like. If you like the character that gets to lead each episode, then you're going to enjoy that episode. If you don't like them as much, which is kind of my case with John Dorie Sr., I don't really like him as much. He's okay, but I think of him as an add-on for John. As in episode 3, not as much of a fan of that, because he's just like a character I don't really, I never really thought much of. But in this one, Sarah's sort of the same way for me, and I can say after the episode being done that I feel for her a lot more, and I like her a lot more as a character, and I would actually like to see her survive for at least for a while. And just a question I'd like to get to see at some point if Wendell is indeed, in fact, alive somewhere, or if that was just something with Strand. So the intro, everything like that, you got the radio. She's kind of calling out for Wendell. Doesn't find him. Finds Morgan instead, at least on the walkie-talkie. And then she runs into Josiah and also Rufus, which I thought was really awesome, the way they kind of used Rufus in this one. In that, and I like Rufus a lot. I think it's kind of unfortunate because he'd be cool to see. But then again, you do have Daryl in the original Walking Dead TV series with Dog. So if Rufus was like a consistent thing, it would kind of feel a little bit, somewhat similar. But him being a cadaver dog is pretty cool in that it just makes sense the way they went with this one. Daniel had the cat for a while, and I think even he had said, Ruben Blades has said that in an interview that when he had the idea to have a dog, they said, no, you can't because Daryl has a dog. So it sort of makes sense for me in this one that you see Rufus. Unfortunately, as terrible as it is, I was like, no, I got the bite and everything. But I also wasn't sure. I was like, are we sure that a zombie bite will burn up and kill a dog? Does it apply to dogs the same way as it does to us? I wasn't exactly sure, but after watching the episode, it sounds like that's the case. There was some really awesome zombie kills in this one, some cool scenes, and it was cool to see Josiah with his shovel type weapon, which is new. I don't think we've ever seen a shoveler before in Walking Dead, so that was pretty cool. The car crash with Sarah, she's kind of freaking out and everything, and also this group which is kind of herding zombies into pens. It's like herding them in and penning them off. Some of them look like characters from like Fallout, the video game, if you guys ever played it, where they've got like goggles on and the whole deal on. It's just a bit odd to me that you would have a group like that, considering nobody knew the nuke was going to go off. Where did they find all this gear? But I guess, if they kind of figured it out, then some of them would go to find gear as quickly as they could, which could just be lying around like anywhere, and put it on. But it has a bit of a Fallout feel. We do get to see some of the scenes that, again, in some of the locations. I think when there was the burial going on with Rufus and everything, you could kind of see the background again, which looks a little bit kind of silly. I don't know what they did with this. Did they use like front screen projection or something? It's kind of cool. It feels like kind of like a retro type of thing, because you got like the back screen, and then you've got kind of this part in front where they're standing on and everything. Anyway, it reminded me of like front screen projection. I'm not an expert as far as film goes, but it looks retro and kind of cool in that way. But I'm not used to seeing it in Walking Dead, so it's a little bit different. But anyway. Really great stuff for that. It was a cool fight to see him fight against Morgan, and to see what happened with Rufus, which was very unexpected. But you can see how after that would happen, Josiah would have a totally different change of heart. Like you could see how once that occurred, that he would change his ways, have a change of heart almost immediately. And I think anybody can kind of understand that. So then we get to see Lair of the Tower and everything else. It was good to see Althea is alive, and a lot of the others are too. You got Wes in there. You've got Lucy. You've got Dan and some of the others. Jacob as well mentioned. So looking to see that group kind of join with Morgan now at some point, and Grace, and maybe go to the sub, or maybe they leave the sub and they go to a different location, which might be better. So could be some good stuff, good setup here. So, kind of leave things off with this other kind of external threat as well, too, of this group we don't really know, Dark Horse and this whole thing. I really enjoyed this episode. I liked it way more than episode 3. The nuclear apocalypse did not bother me in this one. Whereas in episode 3 it started to really get on my nerves. This one was much better because you had it in there a little bit, but it wasn't so overpowering to where it felt like nobody could even go outside. I guess it's just based on their location of where they are. But I would like to see our survivors move away from kind of those spots where they have to be fully masked up and everything the whole time, move into areas where it's not such of a big deal, because I do find it, not quite as entertaining when you can't see who each of the characters are. You don't know who they are. The environment is kind of, drab. And so it's just not as good. This one was much better because you had a mix of a little bit of that, but not overpowering, where some of the earlier episodes, it did feel very overpowering. So I'm going to give this episode a 9.6 out of 10. Very high ranking. Is it my favorite episode so far of the season? I think it is my favorite episode so far of the season. Really great, and Josiah could be really cool later on. So we'll see if he kind of joins or becomes an ally later. Comes in at the most opportune time, I think, is what I would expect for that. And let me know what you guys think. Leave your comments below. Kind of a Sarah character-focused episode. Turned out really great, I thought. That's it for this review, guys. We'll see you again soon for another video. As always, it's Trev, and I'm saying peace. So there, guys. See you soon.